It is your smile that is most beautiful. It is your smile that is most beautiful. No, it's your eyes.
So this is to do with housing and how housing has affected us, and of course it affects us now. We're living in the suburbs, a lot of us, and why are we living in these suburbs, which are so inconvenient, so messy? Well, Dr. Jones will tell us and will give us the right answer. Dr. Jones, let's give him a big hand of applause. Thank you for coming, Dr. Jones.
Thank you for having me. I guess it's appropriate that I'm speaking to Catholic engineers because I'm going to be talking about social engineering and the impact that it had on, first of all, housing in general, but also the Catholic ethnic neighborhoods that many of us grew up in the period following World War II. In the 1930 edition of his famous book, Behaviorism, which first appeared in 1913, when Europe was about to dissolve into war, John B. Watson tried to allay any fears his readers might have concerning social engineering. First of all, he assured them, we all must admit that social experimentation is going on at a very rapid rate at present, at an alarmingly rapid rate for comfortable conventional souls. As an example of social experimentation, we have war. Since the Big Three foundations which funded Watson also funded Gunnar Myrdal's book, it should come as no surprise that The American Dilemma, a huge book of over 1,000 pages in length, should advance the cause of social engineering under the cover of war. Its message is simple. Human nature is changeable and will be changed by social engineering. The immediate impetus for social engineering was brought on by the war with fascism and enabled by the defeat of the isolationists whose policies were based on outmoded ideas of race. But its effects will continue after the war. In fact, the main thrust of social engineering will take place after the war. The race issue in this regard was the thin end of a very large wedge that would soon have enormous repercussions on where people would live, where their children would go to school, and other aspects of life. America, according to Myrdal, needed to solve its race problem before it could assume its role as a leader of the coalition against fascism and then the leader of the new internationalist world order following fascism's defeat. Myrdal's vision of the future is both frank and chilling. And this is a direct quote from The American Dilemma. From the point of view of social science, this means, among other things, that social engineering will be increasingly demanded. Many things that for a long period have predominantly been a matter of individual adjustment will become more and more determined by political decision and public regulation. We are entering an era where fact-finding and scientific theories of causal relations will be seen as instrumental in planning controlled social change. The peace will bring nothing but problems, one mounting upon another, and consequently new urgent tasks for social engineering. The American social scientist, because of the New Deal and the war, is already acquiring familiarity with planning and practical action. He will never again be given the opportunity to build up so disinterested social science. Social engineering of the coming epoch, Myrdal continues, will be nothing but the drawing of practical conclusions from the teaching of social science that human nature is changeable and that human deficiencies and unhappiness are, in a large degree, preventable. We have today in social science a greater trust in the improvability of man and society than we have ever had since the Enlightenment. Now, Gunnar Myrdal began work on The American Dilemma in 1939. The Carnegie Corporation had chosen him to head the project because he was a Swede, which meant someone outside of the polarized racial situation in America at that time. In addition to being an outsider, Myrdal was someone who had done work with his feminist wife Alva on family and population, which the Carnegie Foundation found congenial. He was also chosen because he was a socialist, and as such, he was part of the Common Front alliance with the communists against fascism at the time. Alger Hiss, who subsequently was shown to be a communist spy, was prominent in the Carnegie Corporation at the time. The Carnegie people contacted Gunnar Myrdal in August of 1937. After turning them down once, Myrdal finally decided to become involved in a study on which he had no experience. The first memorandum on the planning of the research to be undertaken was then submitted to the Carnegie Foundation on January 28, 1939. The Nazis invaded Poland 8 months later. In April of 1940, they invaded Denmark and Norway, and at this point, Gunnar Myrdal, the Swedish patriot, left the United States. He left the project. You can read in the introduction to the book that he left it in what he calls the capable hands of Samuel A. Stouffer, whom he identifies as a sociologist at the University of Chicago. What Myrdal does not tell us is that in handing the project over to Stouffer, he was placing it in the hands of the American psychological warfare establishment.